This video will demonstrate how to change the receipt paper roll in your Genmega ATM. For this demonstration, we're using a Genmega G2500 model. However, this also applies to any Genmega machine which uses the same type of printer. To begin, let's open up the top of the machine so that you can see the printer. With the top open, you can see the receipt printer. For this demonstration, we're also going to show you how to hinge the front of the machine forward. This is not necessary to replace a receipt paper roll. However, it can be useful for doing troubleshooting and testing the printer. To hinge the front of the machine forward, remove these screws found at the front of the sliding tray. This is a Phillips head screw, and there's one on each side in the same location. With these two screws removed, the front of the machine will hinge forward, fully exposing the printer. Next, we need to remove the paper that's currently in the printer. Push down on the green lever and then feed the paper back and remove what's left of the roll. Return the green lever back to the up position. Do this by putting your hand underneath it and lifting up. Don't just use the lever to lift it into place. It's better to put your hand underneath this roller and click it into place that way. That ensures that both sides of this mechanism are closed. We're now ready to go ahead and add the new paper to the printer. With this paper, this is a coated side out receipt roll, which means you're going to want to push the paper down in this out in this direction. Set the paper into the cradle, wind this back, and go underneath these weighted rollers here in the back. If you're ever unsure of how to do this, there's a diagram on the side of the printer that explains it. Then feed this paper underneath both of these black plastic guides. It's very important to get it underneath both. And then simply feed it up towards the front. The motor should grab it and then spit a test receipt out to the front. Once the paper has been successfully loaded, you can print a test receipt using this black button on the top edge of the printer circuit board. This points up towards the ceiling. Press and hold this button for a moment, and it should spit out a receipt with a test pattern such as this. If you don't see any writing on the receipt, it might mean that the paper is in backwards. This thermal coated receipt paper only prints on one side. So if you don't have the proper thermal coating facing upwards as into the printer, you should be able to see black if you draw on it with your fingernail. If you don't, then it means you've got the paper in backwards or the wrong side is facing upwards. So what are some possible reasons why the paper may not feed when you go to insert it into the printer? Well, first of all, make sure that the printer is powered on. You should see lights on the side of the circuit board, and the light on top of the power supply should be lit. Secondly, when you feed paper into the paper tray, make sure that it's cut straight. If you feed something like looks like this into the printer, it's not going to hit the switches that it needs to activate the motors. So rip the front of the receipt straight before you go to feed it in through this section. Another reason why the paper may not feed is that the feed lever switch is not properly closed. If I go and open the feed lever here, notice that there's a small switch here that when the feed lever is closed, it presses on this little button and notifies the printer that the lever is shut. Make sure that when you're closing the feed lever, put your hand underneath the feed lever and push up, and that makes sure that this side of the printer gets closed in addition to the other side. Once the paper is feeding and printing correctly, go ahead and return the bezel back to the upright position if you had dropped it. Just replace the screws back into the slide tray. Next, let's go ahead and check the alignment of the printer. To test the alignment of the printer, use the test print button on the side of the printer circuit board to print a test receipt, but don't remove it from the front of the machine. With the print receipt sticking out a little bit, look to see that you have an equal amount of gap on either side of the receipt. If it's skewed to one side or the other, you can loosen the screws that hold the printer to the sliding tray and move it around to get it lined up in the middle. Loosening these screws on either side of the printer will give you a small amount of adjustment so that you can move the printer left to right as well as front to back and make sure that the front of the printer is aligned properly against the back of the bezel. If you need to move the front of the printer up or down to properly align it with the back of the bezel, if you place your fingers underneath this plastic section called the presenter, you can move it up or down a small amount, about 1/4 of an inch, enough to basically get it aligned properly in this plane. Once you're done messing with the alignment of the printer, go ahead and print a last test receipt to make sure everything's okay. When you're happy with it, go ahead and lock up the top of the machine. The paper roll has now been successfully changed. We hope this has been of help. If you're having any other printer related issues, please check out some of our other videos on printer troubleshooting. Thank you.